If you're a thinking person today, it's extremely important to understand Russia. I'm Dan Veksler, and I'm here to help you understand Russia better and without bias. It's about time we talked about relations between Russia and Islam. After Russian Orthodox Christianity, Islam is the number 2 religion within Russia itself. According to the 2002 government census, 14.5 million people in Russia, about 10% of the population, identified themselves as Muslim. At the time this census was conducted, the position of the Muslim leaders in the country was that the number was actually closer to 20 million. Certain large areas of the Russian Federation are populated by traditionally Muslim ethnic groups. In some cases, their population there makes up 94 or 96%. According to some sociologists, between 10 and 15% of the members of these ethnic groups have converted to Russian Orthodoxy. And as for the other way around, depending on who you talk to, between 2 and 20,000 ethnic Russians are converted Muslims. Islam has existed in Russia since the 10th century, which is also when Russia adopted Eastern Orthodox Christianity from the nearby Byzantine Empire as its state religion. Before that, the various not yet unified dukedoms and tribes that comprise the kind of Russian coalition worshipped pagan pantheons. There are areas of Russia today where Muslims lived long before any Christians did. Also, during the 3 centuries that Russia was entirely subsumed by the Mongolian Empire, the Golden Horde, the alliance between the Mongols and Tatars that ruled the Mongolian Empire, adopted Islam as its unified state religion, and it stayed that way for about 120 years. This was in the 13th and 14th centuries. By the way, unfortunately for Russians and for the rest of the world, Russia was among the first countries where terrorist tactics, in the modern sense of the word, were used. These, however, had nothing to do with Muslims. They were perpetrated against the Tsarist regime by dissidents and revolutionaries, most of whom were ethnic Russians. Dynamite was invented in 1867 by Alfred Nobel, after whom the Nobel Prize is named. Russians who wished to overthrow the Tsarist regime, and there were plenty of them, immediately began using dynamite, often dying themselves in the process. They would blow up trains, bridges, other infrastructure. In 1881, the Tsar Alexander II himself was assassinated by a suicide bomber in the center of the capital city, my hometown and Vladimir Putin's, St. Petersburg. Under the Tsar, ethnic minorities could not even come to the capital city without special dispensation, and that was almost impossible to get. Several decades later, Joseph Stalin remembered this insulting inequality. He was Georgian. His real name was Djugashvili. Georgia is a devoutly Christian Central Asian country. Half of its borders are with Muslim countries. Young Djugashvili himself went to seminary to become a Christian priest, though he was really a passionate revolutionary. Stalin's first position in the halls of Soviet power in the 1920s was Minister of Ethnic Minority Relations. In this post, he opened the cities to ethnic minorities, creating an unprecedented ethnic diversity in Russia. The Jews, for example, who had moved to cities from the Fiddler-on-the-Roof style shtetls they were living in on the western borders of Russia, survived the Holocaust, though their parents and siblings who had stayed behind most often did not. But back to Islam. So what about Russia's international relations with Muslim countries? The USSR began to develop its close economic ties with Muslim countries like Iraq, Syria, Libya, and Egypt in the 50s and 60s. The Cold War began after the end of World War II, and it put the Soviet Union, which was already reeling from its enormous losses, in a tight economic position. The Muslim world, meanwhile, was also dissatisfied with things like the creation of the State of Israel in 1947. This created a natural alliance between the Soviet Union and Muslim countries. Over the next few decades, the Soviet Union's main vector of trade was with the Muslim world. They traded everything from chocolate to military technology. By the Soviet Union's collapse in 1991, the USSR was the Muslim world's biggest single client, accounting for 30% of the region's entire economy.
And if you want to learn even more about Russia, this time in person, Modern Wall Street proudly promotes our very own Daniel Veksler, who will be teaching a Spring 2016 course at NYU from February 22nd to May 9, 2016. Click on the link below and also in the comments section to be redirected to the NYU Spring 2016 course enrollment page.